Welcome, ladies. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Angie with Living Inspired Within, and I have Emily with me today. And Emily and I connected in a separate group through a different coaching group. And we were actually in an accountability group together, and we hit it off and connected and have stayed connected. And I absolutely love what she's doing within her niche and for people out there. So I reached out to Emily, and I felt like she had some really great, valuable things to provide our community. So thank you, Emily, for joining us today. I greatly appreciate it. And I'm super excited about this topic because this topic is how to take charge of your schedule so you can do more without burning out, which is really timely because on the way here, I sent her a message and I was like, I'm just running a few minutes late. I'm barreling down the highway. I had an interview and a closing that ran over and all of that. So I love how things happen. I'm a firm believer things happen for a reason. So I may end up being more of who you're speaking to today, but either way, we're so glad to have you here. Thank you, Emily. And please tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, and then we'll get talking about the topic.
Definitely. Well, thank you for having me, Angie. As you said, we go back to another coaching program, and it has just been invaluable to stay connected with you throughout the growth of both of our businesses. But as Angie said, my name is Emily Whelden. I am the founder and lead coach at The Chronic Professional, which is a coaching practice focused on people with chronic illness who are pursuing an advanced career. So they're either in an advanced career or they want to be in the future, and they also struggle with chronic illness. So they're trying to figure out how to balance that all together. So I focus my coaching on a few key areas, primarily health, mindset, and productivity. So when you're the healthiest you can be, you have more energy. When you have the right mindset around using energy and what your goals and limits are, you can more effectively adapt to your chronic illness. And when you have the we always think about productivity as like, how can I get the most done? But sometimes it's not about getting the most done. Sometimes it's about getting the least done and being the most efficient you can be while still producing a quality product, which is something that a lot of people that I work with really struggle with. And I know certainly I have struggled with in the past. So that's sort of what I'm going to be talking about today.
That's awesome. And I love that. It's so important because as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to be more productive and get more things done. But I love, how you mentioned maybe it's that we get less done, but we do it better, right? And we provide a more quality product. And one of the things that I often talk about is having an agenda every day. And if it's not something that's scheduled on that agenda, then it either gets scheduled for a different date and time or it gets thrown out altogether. Not literally thrown out, but maybe pushed off or whatever, just not done. And that's okay. And there has to be a point too, and this is something I'm working on, but there has to be a point too in the day where you're like, okay, I'm done. I've done all that I can. I've given my best. And now I'm done. So I'm going to spend time, by myself, or I'm going to go spend time with my family, or I'm going to go for a walk, or whatever that is. And I know, especially number one, as entrepreneurs, that can be really difficult, but especially as we're living in a pandemic and often so many of us work from home, it doesn't go away, right? It's always there. It's always there. It's always there. So talk to us more about doing less. Right? So maybe doing less and what that looks like and how we can decide what it is we're going to do, right?
Yeah. So I have been working with my own coach for over a year now, and she is an ADHD coach. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 30 years old. So through my whole life had all this time to really build bad habits. And one of the habits that I had built and still struggle with is I overcommit myself. And I turn every project, no matter how mundane it is, into this big task that has to be completed and it's serious, and it just can be overwhelming. And then what happens predictably is that it doesn't get done, or I wait until the last minute and it takes longer than I thought it was going to. And so it's late, or I am staying up all night trying to finish something. And that is not a way to exist in a professional or even an entrepreneurial setting, because the thing that people who are successful at in business and in the workplace all have in common is longevity, consistent product produced over time, again and again and again. And that someone is going to be successful when they can be relied upon to produce a quality product. But people who produce a quality product don't necessarily start by producing the highest end product, or work product rather, that they can, because that takes too long. And so you have to be able to balance quality with quantity. And that's really what my system for managing my schedule is like. We all have that running to-do list of tasks that we want to have completed. But if every day we sit down and we just say, okay, what's on my to-do list? It can be overwhelming. You go to one task and it's actually not a task, it's a project. And you get in your mind that I can complete this project and this project and this project in one day. And maybe you can, but maybe it would have been better to space those out into 3 days, or even to say, oh, these 3 projects have the same task that needs to be completed. How can I operationalize that? How can I make this task something that, I'm working from a template off of something, or I'm making this decision about how I'm going to go through this project in advance. And I'm going to repeat that process for all 3, so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time I have a new task or a new project to do. So you talked a little earlier about how when we're at home and we're all working from home, that it can feel like, your business is always calling to you. So that is also why I strongly recommend a start work time and an end work time. Because if you're just like, oh, I have to get this done today, well, when is that? When does today end? Does it end when you have to go pick your kids up from school? Does it end when, you've got that mom gap from kids are done from school and then they go to bed, and you can't work during that time, but you're going to have 2 hours at the end of the night, and you're going to save a task for that time. That's one way to take charge of your schedule, so that you can do more because you've got that 2 hours. But instead of saying, oh, I'm going to try to work while my kids are being, around, and they're just going to have to hang out while I'm working, they're not going to do that.
They never do that.
No, even my dogs don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's all about finding where you can either slim down your to-do list to produce only that minimum viable product that you need to deliver, and where you can make decisions in advance, things like meal planning or meal preparation, and also to keep those boundaries around your schedule so that you're not trying to juggle 4 different things all at once in your environment, because that's just a recipe for your tasks to actually take you longer than they should.
Yeah, that's true. And I was talking to someone about multitasking the other day, and they said, do you multitask? I said, I don't believe in multitasking. I don't think that that's a thing. It's not, you cannot be effective, quote unquote, multitasking. That means you're doing nothing really well and nothing efficiently. So I am anti-multitasking. I don't think it works. So, and I even almost went a step further, and I got rid of my to-do list. So I don't have a to-do list. I have an agenda for the day. The only caveat to that is I use the sticky notes on my computer, and I will put, and so in my agenda, I'll put sticky note items, but those are projects. Those are like ongoing things that pop in your head. You're like, okay, so I just put it there and then it's done. It's compartmentalized. So I don't have a to-do list. 40% of the stuff on your to-do list doesn't get done, right? So like you're saying, take a look at it and prioritize it and say, okay, this is what I can get done effectively. But I love how you quantify, when does your day end? Because I'm guilty of sometimes if I have to. So I was preparing for a master class the other day, and I went back to work for 2 hours after my son went to bed. So that's when my day ended. But other days it ends when I pick him up from school. So I think we have to be really fluid with that. But I think it's good to define it. And so when I write out my agenda for the day, it will say, you're done, mommy time, or it goes into mommy family time and then work again. So whatever that looks like, I think just being cognizant of that.
Definitely. And I hear what you're saying about the doing away with your to-do list, but for those of us like myself who are not comfortable doing away with the master running to-do list, I personally I keep an ongoing running to-do list, because if I don't write it down, it doesn't exist. But then every day after I've gone through my morning routine, I've taken the dogs out, I've cleaned up whatever dishes are hanging out, I sit down and I look at my to-do list, my master to-do list, and I look at my schedule for the day and I say, okay, what do I have to get done today? And what would I like to get done today? Mm-hmm. And then I write out a daily to-do list that is not my whole master to-do list, but I know that if I've got my must-dos done, then for the day I can go back and say, okay, I finished all the things I have to do today. What would be something that would get me ahead? And I can take off that list that I keep separate for the whole day. Mm-hmm. And like you were saying, blocking out that time for a variable schedule can be important. Maybe some days your day ends when you pick up your son and some days it doesn't. But if like your agenda is very similar, it's like, okay, we're starting work at 9, we're ending at 3 to go pick up your son from school. And then from 3 to whenever is your time for family or self-care or whatever. And then from, 8 to 10, that's going to be your work day. That's your schedule for the day. And that is a really fantastic way to just keep that boundary in place when things feel like people get burned out because things feel out of control. And when you can take charge of your day in any small way, you're regaining control of something that is going to stress you out and make you feel burned out.
Yeah. And I like that. I never really thought of it as control. And I do. I like control. So maybe my agenda is the way I control my day, right? And that's okay. That works really well for me. But to make sure you do have control of your day and you are taking control. I often will say, take control of your life. This is a way you can take control of your life. And I think that's so important, definitely. So.
And one way that I think people overlook how they take control of their schedule, how they take control of their life, is with our daily routines. So if you can make something that is in your everyday, like you're going to have to do it every single day, if you can just make that turn that into a routine, then you're going to save energy and save stress deciding in the moment. Right. So we all do this thing throughout the day called executive functioning. And that is the part of our brain that allows us to prioritize what we need to do when, how things are going to flow from one task to another. when they say that women are really great at multitasking. I know you said you don't believe in that, but that's the trope. Women are great at multitasking. Well, it's because actually estrogen increases your executive functioning. And so your brain is working in a way to organize yourself. Well, that takes energy, right? It takes energy, it takes brain time. And for people who have ADHD or other executive functioning disorders or chronic illness, or just like a lot to do, the more things that you have on your plate, the more executive functioning you have to use. And it's not this unlimited resource, right? So as much as you can make something routine or operationalize it or take out the decision from the moment, the less you have to use energy on your executive functioning. And so you can get more things done. You can be more efficient because you're not having to pick and choose in the moment. It's already been decided, which is what your daily plan or your daily agenda does.
Yep. No, I love that. And it's almost like creating a habit, right? So your habits, your brain, often if you've ever, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it though. Oh, it was a book on habits. I really loved it because it was a way you realize that your brain goes into autopilot, and it's one of those things. It's like when you're driving home from a spot that you leave, right? So if you go to the gym and you drive home, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here, right? There's a function in your brain where you go into autopilot. And so it is almost like a rest place for your brain. So the more we can create routines and or habits, the easier it is on us. And then of course we can use that energy elsewhere. So I love that. Awesome.
Right. And it also carries over or can carry over to things like, everyday communications. Like, how many times has your spouse or partner or your kid come up to you, interrupted what you're doing, and said, "What's for dinner?" Well, what if there was a place where you just wrote down what you were going to be having for dinner every night that week, and whoever wanted to know could just go and look? Then they wouldn't have to go and interrupt their time. They wouldn't have to take time out of their day to ask you. You wouldn't have to be interrupted, and everyone would get the information that they need. Now, I'm not naive enough to know that, or to think that that will work 100% of the time. And of course, you don't want to cut out those daily communications and stuff like that. But taking that type of everyday frustration and putting it into this week-long plan is a way that you can really save some energy and annoyance. You could just say, go look at the board.
Go look at the board. Or better yet, if you actually want to make it,
all
the ingredients are in the kitchen.
Right.
Yes. Better yet, right?
Exactly.
But no, that's great. And that's just something simple. So we've talked about this day after day in these interviews. These are really simple things that you can apply to your life, your day, your routine, that can really make a good positive impact in your life. And I know for my husband and I, when we say, okay, this is what we're having for the week, like I know what I bought for dinner, right? And he may decide he wants to do something else, and that's okay. If he does, he'll go to the store on the way home. But we have a list, like we knew what we were eating all week. And it does, we're both really busy, and we're working and juggling sports and school and jobs and businesses and all that. And it really does, it's just nice to know, oh, that's already taken care of. We already decided, we already did that. And oh, by the way, if the groceries are already bought, that's even better.
Yeah, because it just saves so much time. You don't have to cook everything in advance, but if you know what you're going to be making, well, maybe you need to start cooking at a certain time, and you don't have to get to, 5 or 6 o'clock where it's already like, oh gosh, I should have put this in the slow cooker 4 hours ago if we wanted to have it for dinner today, so it takes out some of that in the moment. What are we going to do to recover? In my coaching practice, I have a lot of my clients do this for backup meals. So they have their meal plan or, their grocery list or whatever. They know what they're going to be having each week, but maybe they're not feeling so great after work, Well, they have, a stack in their freezer of something that's either pre-cooked, or they can just take it out and pop it in the oven for an hour and they're done. They don't have to worry about it. And they're also not ending up ordering delivery 3 or 4 nights a week because they're tired. So you have your plan, you have your backup plan, and then you're going to be good to go.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Are there any other tips you want to share with us about, kind of prioritizing your day, your schedule, or being more efficient?
Well, one of the things that really leads to burnout is this blurring of we talked about a blurring of boundaries between work life and home life. So once you reestablish those boundaries by using your schedule, it's really important to include in that schedule time for self-recovery, for whatever that means for you, whether it's time to sit and eat dinner with your partner or your family or a friend, your roommate maybe, or it means time to go for a walk before you have to sit down at your desk. As long as you can build in enough time for yourself to rejuvenate not only your body, but your mind, it's going to allow you to refill your tank in terms of energy and have more energy at the end of the day if you're including time throughout the day to take care of yourself and your own needs.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I put something out there not too long ago that was like, we're home, we're working from home, so get up, go outside. Like, it's just even 5 minutes of outside does so much for us. Get up, stretch, walk around, things that you can do, very small things to make sure that you're including that self-care in your agenda is so important. And especially too, I know you work with a lot of clients, right, with chronic illnesses. So it's even more important if you have that extra need there. So
Yeah. So a lot of my clients, one of the things that we focus on is what I call energy rationing. And so how do you get enough time to complete your tasks without overcommitting, but also have enough time to rest? And planning to rest is really, really important when you have a chronic illness, because you're going to need it. If there's something that you're going to need and you don't include that in your plan, then you're setting your plan up for failure. So it's really important to be honest with yourself about what you need in order to be successful in completing your tasks or your plan or getting through the day. And for many of us, I would say all of us, that includes, some rest, whether that, like you were saying, is just getting up and going down to the kitchen for a glass of water instead of having a huge bottle that you refill at your desk, or whatever it is, taking that minute or 5 minutes to decompress is going to really improve your productivity. Because when you are working on an energy deficit, and by that I mean like you are tired, you're trying to push through to the last minute, you're just like, you're really low energy. You're actually less productive. You're less efficient at your task. So your task takes longer. It's going to be of lower quality, and it's probably not going to be up to standard. So sometimes it's actually more efficient to take a 15 or 20-minute break, maybe even a short nap or rest in the middle of the day, and then continue on working when you're more rejuvenated. You have to refill that tank to have the car metaphor go forward. But yeah, like all of that is important.
mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to kind of chunk it up and take rests. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really bad about doing that. I have my agenda. I mean, I have the 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, lunch, but I'm like lunch and something, right? So I eat lunch at noon every day unless I have another call, but it's like lunch and something. So I'm doing something else during it. So I don't, and that's something so thank you for that. That's a good reminder for me to say, okay, what do I need to really focus on, to get better? And it is taking a rest, because I go 100 miles a minute from the moment I drop my son off until I pick him up, and then sometimes after bed. And that really doesn't serve me well, right? And if I'm not serving me well, then I can't serve my community of clients well, in either business or both or whatever it is. So we have to remember that, right? We have to put our own oxygen mask on before we put it on our children, in essence. And
Exactly.
that's a hard concept to understand. And it's something I honestly struggle with. Like, hey, make sure, I'm taking care and the rest that I need and the respite that I need to be able to pour into my community, my clients, my family, my friends, whatever it is, really well. So,
And I want to preface this all by saying, like, of course, there are times when you have to push through. Of course, there are times when your schedule gets out of control or you just have a lot going on. And you're going to need to be in a higher stress, higher output, less time for self-care mode. But
right.
even in those times, you can take 30 seconds, you can take a minute. And sometimes that's enough, right?
Mhm.
So you were saying that you don't stop and take time for lunch. I mean, we could coach on that and about why, but
I know, right? I'm like,
but
oh, great. That's okay, because I'm all about accountability. So you can hold me accountable. Everyone in this group that's watching can hold me accountable and say, listen, have you taken time for yourself?
you know
That's
what?
okay.
That might work for you.
Hmm.
Working through lunch might be exactly how you need to run your day. The fact that you're eating lunch instead of just working through and not having anything is important,
Hmm.
because you need to get that energy through midday. But it might be that you go outside and eat lunch and also take notes or something, or do whatever you have to do, maybe on paper, and step away from the computer. But maybe you do just work straight through lunch, because that gives you another half an hour that you can spend with your family in the evening. So wherever you need to take that time, wherever it works best for you, there's no formula, there's no rule, so long as you have a clear boundary between your work and your personal time that works for you.
Right.
So there's no wrong way to go about it.
You so much for taking this time out of your day to pour into our group and Women Living Inspired Within. It is much, much appreciated. So
Thank you.
thank you. All right. See everyone soon.